This is session 2 of Health by God's Design. This one is called the 6 Pillars of Health. So in the last session, we really went over one main idea. And that one main idea is that health really starts in the heart. And that the outward expression of our body's function and design is really the outward expression of what's going on internally. Basically, the unseen things that happen inside of us are what gets expressed on the outside, and it's actually pretty much impossible to hide. That's why we often wear masks and things like that. We actually try to change the way the outward display of our health is actually displayed, and we try to interfere with it sometimes. But what I wanted to really focus on is making sure there was a clear understanding of the fact that what's inside shows on the outside, either in the way it looks, our body looks, the way our body functions, or the behaviors that we engage in on a regular basis. And that, and then God's design for health was really that we would be made whole from the inside out, not just putting on an outward display of looking all right or seeming all right, but actually being right. First and foremost, right with Him, and really understand that being right with Him is the foundation of having a healthy body and a healthy life. One of the other things we talked about is the design that God has to restore all things. So we started in Genesis and we went all the way through to Revelation, realizing that not only is there going to be a new heaven, a new earth, a new Jerusalem, but also a new, really a restored Eden with the tree of life. And that the fruit of the tree of life is for the healing of all nations. And so the one thing that was forbidden for Adam and Eve is the thing that's actually given freely to the nations for their healing in the end. So it's really important to understand biblical context for where we are in time, what God's plans are. He is extremely faithful to His promises, and we can trust Him in His design. But when we explored that, we looked at the fact that even in Eden, before the fall, after Adam and Eve sinned and they were cast out of Eden, before Christ, after Christ, and even in the resurrection and where all things are made new, that all of that included the physicality of the human body. And so we're kind of in this middle, still under a curse where there's actually a promise in the Bible says all men are destined to die once, right? But we know that there is deterioration on earth, but in order to maximize our health and the usefulness of our body, we actually do need to understand the rules of how the body works in a physical world. And so what we're going to do is really unpack that concept of the rules around health. Now, there's a really good quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he says this. He says, "As to the methods, there may be a million and then some, but principles are few. The man who grasps principles can successfully select his own methods. The man who tries methods while ignoring principles is sure to have trouble." Now, I think this is really powerful because when we talk about health, when we talk about the way the body works, we often get inundated with all sorts of methods. So you say, "Hey, I'm having this problem. What should I do?" And your response from your friends, from your family, from other doctors is often going to be something that's really a methodology. It's it's basically a suggestion to just try something. So what we do is we try method after method after method. Hey, try this pill, try this diet, try this exercise program. So we try. And what we're doing is we're actually just engaging in various methods, but oftentimes we don't actually have a firm grasp of the principles behind how the body works. And so another way of thinking of principles would be like laws. And so let me give you a really good example. If you were to build an airplane, for example, the Wright brothers, when they first built the first airplane and they took off in North Carolina, they didn't really have a firm grasp of gravity, aerodynamics, or anything, but they were more than willing to experiment. So they tried and tried and tried and tried over and over and over. Leonardo da Vinci was creating, flying machine drawings. So he had a concept of flight, but they were machines that actually couldn't work because he didn't understand the actual laws of aerodynamics, the laws of gravity, or the laws of lift. And so the Wright brothers finally came up with a design that just happened to fly just enough that they were credited with the first flight. But they really didn't grasp it, and they couldn't truly replicate consistently the production of an airplane. But what it did do is reveal that there was some force or some consistent thing at work that allowed that plane to fly in the same way that there's a consistent law at work that allows birds to fly. And so over the years, we've been able to extract those real laws, the laws of gravity, and understand its exact pull, the laws of aerodynamics and the laws of lift, and we can create exact shapes of planes, of wings, of all sorts of things so that we can guarantee something will fly. And so you can actually have a high school student or even a middle school student, if they understand the math enough, they could calculate without ever getting in a plane, flying a plane, even seeing a plane, just by the theory and application of the laws of aerodynamics and lift and things like that. They could actually design a plane that will fly and know it will fly because they've really understood those laws, right? And so when we think about gravity, we understand it's like a law of physics. We see it's not a changing law. But unfortunately, when we look at health, we see all these changes that people experience. We see all these different experiences that people have, our friends and our family, and we look at it and it looks kind of random. Oh, we say like, oh, I'm so sorry you got that. You randomly got sick, or I'm so sorry I heard you got cancer. And we look at it as if it's random, that randomly happened. And the truth is the human body does not operate under any random principles whatsoever. There's actually very concrete laws that govern the way the body works. And that's not taught. And that's a big part of what this course is to understand the actual way we're designed to live, physically and spiritually, because what happens spiritually affects us physically. And so really, I boiled all these down over all the years I've had, experiences of my own, all the years I've helped other people with their health, and all the years I've studied. I've been trying to extract these principles because as I'm watching everybody respond, and I'm not saying this in any mocking tone, but respond erratically to their experiences, I knew deep down there had to be something that governed the way all this stuff operated. And so I've been slowly extracting these principles, trying to understand them and categorize them. And I've been looking at this for about 16 years straight with that one mindset. What are the laws? What are the principles that govern health? And I've really only been able to extract 6 main principles or laws, which I call the 6 pillars of health. And that's what I want to share with you today, is kind of a 10,000 foot view of these 6 pillars of health. And then in the next session, we're going to be talking about the one firm foundation that they all have to sit on, which is our identity in Christ. And we're actually going to take an entire session just looking at that one thing. These 6 pillars, I dedicate a session to each one of these pillars, and I'm actually going to have some additional content so that you can really understand the pillars even more. But what I want to do is focus on making sure that the 6 pillars are understood really well. So the six pillars of health are very much like a six-legged table. And I like this example a lot. So the surface of the table would be very stable if the legs are all strong, they're all intact, they're evenly spaced, right? This is a strong structure. And the reason why I show the six-pillar table is you potentially could lose two or even three legs of the table and actually still have the table stand, right? A three-legged table still stands upright if it's at least evenly spaced. And so the reason why I show it that way is you can have a failure in a few of the pillars and still experience a moderate level of decent function in your body. But the truth is, it's not as stable as if all six pillars were intact. And so each one of these pillars of health are like an anchor to the health and function of your body. And if you are succeeding in a few of these pillars, you really have the principles down, you've been doing a really good job in these, that means you're strengthening the foundation of your health by keeping that the pillar intact. And so if you have three or four of these pillars, you're not going to maybe notice a lot of symptoms, a lot of illness. But if you leave weaknesses in a few of the pillars over time, then you will start to experience an erosion of your health, and you're going to start experiencing more discomfort in your body and symptoms related to conditions or diseases. Now, if you lose more than three legs of a six-legged table, that table's coming down. It will crash. And in the same way, if you are actually not doing very well in four or more of these pillars, then you're actually going to have a very hard time functioning well. It's actually impossible for you to have good health. And so when I see people that have a failure in four or more of these pillars, usually I see consistent pain, consistent illness, consistent disease, basically just a consistent pattern of problems in their body and even in their mind. And so I want to share with you those six pillars so you can understand it. You can start to think through, hey, this sounds like a pillar I'm really succeeding in, or this is a pillar that I'm actually starting to fail in or have been not managing very well. And so we're going to learn the tools necessary to understand the pillar and then actually reestablish the pillar so you can experience lifelong health. So let's go over those six pillars of health. The first one is mental acuity, right? Mental acuity, emotional fortitude, neurological clarity, chemical purity, nutritional saturation, and physical discipline. These pillars are the keystones to really all the function in your body. Now, when you go to medical doctor, they break up your body into parts. They talk neurological system, endocrine system, digestive system, respiratory system, cardiovascular system. And to me, that doesn't make any sense, because you'll start to see as we go through this that these pillars are really the principles that govern the ability for any of those systems to work. And when we break it down, the deeper we go, you're going to start doing it. Last time I said, learning about the way the body works and going through this course, it's going to feel like a picture that's blurry at first. But as you start to dive into this content, the picture is going to come into focus. And once you see it, it's very hard to unsee. Once you understand these principles, it's very hard to ever stray from them, because they really do govern so much of the way the body works. And so if you have what I call a six-pillar body, which means that your body is sustained by six strong pillars that sustain your health, this is what you can expect out of it. Your body will be strong and durable. That's very important. You want a durable body, a strong body, because it can resist forces, or it can resist anything that could potentially damage it. It has resilience to it. We should have a robust immune system. So the goal is not to have basically a symptom-free life. It's an immune system that responds very strong to any level of infection. So even if you're heavily infected by something, that your body would be able to launch a very strong immune response to kill any sort of infection in your body and keep you healthy. A six-pillar body is a highly adaptive body. And what that means is you experience all sorts of changes throughout your life. Changes in your environment, changes in your emotions, changes in your age, changes in your physical activity, and your body needs to be able to adapt to all of those changes. An unhealthy body does not adapt, but a very healthy body adapts very efficiently and quickly to whatever changes that you might encounter. A six-pillar body also has a sharp and fast mind. I can tell you, I feel sharper now in my life than I ever have before. And a lot of times we talk about like an erosion of our mental sharpness, but I have found the complete opposite, that the healthier I get, the better my mind works, the greater it is as a tool for use to process information, to think through things, to recall memories, and even be able to problem solve. All of it has increased over time as I've been healthier in these other areas. We would have also a high level of memory retention. You know, we talk about memory loss as a sign of aging, but the aging process is partly age, yes, but it's also partly a lack of stewardship over these six pillars. And so if we do not steward our health and do not manage these six pillars well, we actually accelerate what we typically and commonly call the aging process, when really it's just the deterioration of the body itself. A six-pillar body will also have a high physical and mental energy, so you should be energetic all the time. Like I can sleep 6 hours a night, sometimes 5 hours a night for days in a row and still be highly energetic through all of it and have a lot of mental energy so I can think through it. Like it's 7 p.m. tonight as we're doing this webinar, and I'm still sharp. In fact, I'm sharper now than I was most of the day. And so a lot of times if we don't manage our health very well, it will actually cause a sluggishness. But I've found that when I engage in the right activities and steward these pillars well, my mental energy is retained through the entire day. And that's what you can expect as well. You end up with deeper sleep as well. I can tell you this, I sleep like a baby. I've always slept well, but I sleep very, very well, very restfully according to what I choose. And so deeper sleep is a definite side effect of managing these things. Sometimes we talk about sleep as one of the things that we need to do in order to maintain a healthy body, but sleep is not effort. Sleep is surrender. And so sleep can only be the byproduct of other things going well, but you can't try hard to sleep because the effort of trying opposes the rest that you need to enter into in order to sleep. So sleep is really the end benefit of a healthy life. And if you're maintaining these other things, then the rest you get is deep. And if you get deep rest and sleep, then it also helps recover the body and maintain it over a long period of time. A six-pillar body has increased physical capability, so you'll be able to physically do more than you've ever been able to do before as a natural byproduct. I mean, sometimes I don't even work out, but if I maintain the other 5 pillars, my physical strength goes up anyway. My endurance goes up anyway, and it's because there's just direct benefit to managing your body well that naturally happen without you trying hard. And so what I really want to explain is that the pillars of health are interdependent, okay? These pillars aren't independent of one another, and they're not dependent on one another. They're interdependent. And what that means is that every pillar draws on the strength and the stewardship and the maintenance of the other pillar. For example, mental acuity, the ability to rationalize things well, have a right perspective, and to think clearly, right? That it depends on physical discipline, because when you exercise, it actually helps sharpen the mind. You get more use out of your brain's capability. If you don't eat well, if you're not nutritionally saturated, then it will deteriorate the ability for your brain to work right. And so you need good nutrition in order to have mental acuity. If you accumulated a lot of toxins in your body, it will directly interfere with neurotransmitter signaling. So the nerves can't even fire the right way. It'll slow it down, slow your brain's activity down. So you need to have a chemically pure body. Neurological clarity means connections through the brain. We're going to explain this, but you need to have good connections in your nervous system to be able to even use your brain right so that you can think right. And if I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, but I can tell you, if I'm an emotional wreck, and I have been a couple times in my life, I can't think right. Not at all. And so when we have great emotional fortitude, even in tough situations, then we actually maximize our mental acuity. So it's just an example of the interdependence that one of these pillars has on the other 5 pillars. And we could go through each of these pillars, and I will at the end, of how these pillars of health are interdependent on one another. And we're going to return to it over and over through this course, because this right here, the interdependence of these pillars, is such a keystone to understanding how to maintain your own health through a lifetime. So let's talk about these 6 pillars in a little more detail. Mental acuity is the first of the 6 pillars, and I actually do this in order because of where the last one lays, which is physical discipline. I'll explain that in a second. Mental acuity is the first. And the reason why I always start with it first is because it has to do with your perspective on yourself. I don't know if you ever try on an outfit and you think it doesn't look good. So you kind of get judgmental over yourself. And you ask somebody else, hey, what do you think about your my outfit? And they respond, it looks amazing. And you're like, what? But they're actually an honest person. So like, you're like, that can't be true. And they're like, no, it actually looks really good on you. And they can see you from an outside perspective, even different than you could see yourself in a mirror. They are able to see around you. And so what that has to do with is having a right perspective on something. So a trusted friend, a trusted spouse, when you ask them, hey, how does this look? And they give you the honest feedback, it gives you a different set of eyes on what you can't see yourself. In the same way, you might think, hey, what I'm wearing looks absolutely amazing, and it actually looks absolutely terrible. And then your trusted friend or trusted spouse says that does not look good, and they're not trying to hurt your feelings. They're trying to give you an honest assessment and say, you probably shouldn't go out in that because it does not look good. So mental acuity, when we talk about health, mental acuity is really wrapped around perspective. We need to have a right perspective on a couple things. The first is this: we have to have a right understanding of the function and the potential of the human body. Okay? So what I mean by that is we need to be able to really build enough of a knowledge base of how our body works so that we can start managing our own body. For example, you know that you need water in order to survive. Now, you know that because you just get so thirsty. When you drink water, you feel better. So you learn that by trial and error. But there are people that say, I'm thirsty, and the only liquid they put in their body is soda. I mean, that is reality. Some people hate water so much, they go, all I drink is soda and sweet tea, and that's it. So they don't ever get just pure water in their body. And so because they don't have a right understanding of the fact that soda is erosive and doesn't really hydrate you at a cellular level, they make decisions because the perspective on their health and what they need to maintain their health is not right. Hopefully you're not one of them. If you are, stop doing that and start drinking more water, even if it doesn't seem good right now and your body will actually get used to it. But the point I'm trying to make is this. If you don't have the knowledge in some of these areas, then it's very hard to understand what your potential is. So part of this is also understanding how much capability you actually have. So I can give you a fun story. So my wife, she was a runner. She ran cross country. She can run miles, no problem. I joined the military at 18. Longest run I ever went on was in the Army up until college, and it was like 4 miles, and I thought I was going to die. So I actually started to build a concept in my mind that people aren't designed to run more than about 4 or 5 miles. So when I met my wife, she was on the cross country team and I was in athletic training. Now I should have known better just from that. But instead, what I did is I tried to convince her that she was running beyond human capability. And she just looked at me and pretty much just chuckled and laughed every time I said it. And I really tried to convince her, but really what I was doing is I was letting my perspective blind me from my potential. So she decided to take me out on a run one day. She said, "Hey, do you want to go for a run?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't want to go more than like 3 or maybe maximum 4 miles. I haven't been training, and I don't really think it's good to run that far." And she goes, "Well, just come on." And I said, "Well," and she goes, "Just come on." I was like, "All right." So we go on the run and we start running. We're running and we're running and we're running. And I'm going, I think we're getting kind of far from the campus. She goes, "Don't worry, I know the path. We're just follow me." So we keep running. I'm starting to get tired. So I'm lagging behind. I'm like, "Hey, wait up." And she waited a couple of times, but I think I just irritated her. So she just ran ahead. And finally, I'm like, "Hey, I think this is too far." And I'm like yelling it at this point. She just runs ahead, runs back to campus. And I finally get to campus and I go, "Oh, I think that was more than 3 miles." She goes, "Oh yeah, it was like 5 or 6 miles." I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, it was all in your head." See, she knew I was so trapped in my own head. I had no right concept of my own body's potential. And she made me prove to myself my potential was greater than my understanding of my potential. And so on that day, guess what changed? My perspective. Okay. And I ended up running marathons and we became marathon coaches. But the reason why I'm sharing that with you is I really want you to get this idea that perspective actually matters. And man, can perspective control the way we act and think. And so one of the things I'm going to ask you to do as we go through this course is approach everything with a little bit of humility. I had to approach everything I'm teaching you is not what I learned growing up. It's something I had to learn either by personal experience, failure, knowledge in school, or guiding others through something as a doctor and as an athletic trainer. And every time I had encounters and I started watching patterns, I've had my perspective shifted and changed so much. And now I can clearly see how much potential each and every one of you have. I'm just trying to help shed some light and basically take the blinders off of your eyes so you can see what I can see, that you have unbelievable potential. And through this course, that perspective is going to grow pretty dramatically. In order to have good mental acuity, you also have to have a right understanding of how to filter information in context. Now, this is so important because there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. I had a farmer who was a patient. He came in, and I may have told this story already, but it's worth repeating. He always told fun stories or had good phrases. But one time he comes in, he goes, "Hey, doc, hey, do you know what the difference between knowledge and wisdom is?" And I kind of chuckled to myself and I said, yeah, I do. Well, actually, I want to hear it from you. And so he goes, "Well, knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad." And I kind of chuckled and I was like, wait a minute. That's like the best example I've ever heard of the difference between knowledge and wisdom. You see, like knowledge is just knowing a bunch of facts about a bunch of things. Wisdom has context, right? Wise application of something is the use of knowledge in right context. It's like I can be wordy, I can have a lot of words to say. I can know that what I'm saying is technically correct, and I apply those words at the wrong time and really tick someone off. It's not wise to always speak. It's not wise to always do certain things, even if you have knowledge of something. And so when it comes to health, we want to have not only the knowledge and understanding of how the body works, but we want to filter that knowledge through the lens of wisdom and use wise application of that knowledge for ourselves, and if we're responsible for others, for those around us. In order to have good mental acuity, you also have to have a right assessment of yourself. And this is so important because you need to be able to see where you're actually at if you're going to make any change. It's the same thing. Like, you got to know if your clothes are really ugly or really good. Otherwise, you have a wrong assessment of yourself. The same thing is true here. And so when we go through the whole session on mental acuity, I'm going to talk a lot more about assessing yourself. And then you also need to have a right assessment of where you're going. And you can only do that if you know what your potential is and know where you're at. So the second pillar is emotional fortitude. Now, emotional fortitude in a word is grit, but we're going to dive in and talk about it with a little more oomph. And this one I'm not going to spend much time on here because you're going to see how much this unpacks. And you'll understand as we go through the session on emotional fortitude how important this is. But in short, emotional fortitude is this: you should be able to experience the full range of human emotion. Sometimes when we've been hurt really bad, we feel really weak, we stuff things inside and don't feel them or express them. There's times and places that you cannot deal with something at the moment, but we should never live with things stuffed in the closet. So we should regularly go through and experience the full range of human emotions. In the Bible, it talks about there's a time for dancing and there's a time for mourning, right? That there is times and seasons for different things, and it's appropriate to fully emote those things in those proper seasons. Emotional fortitude is also being a disciplined person. It's the ability to harness stressors for personal growth. So this is actually a form of adaptation. When things get really hard, the hardness of the encounter or the difficulty of the encounter should not determine our responses. We should choose our responses in light of the hard thing that we're encountering. So if we are easily swayed by our situations, that's not emotional fortitude. It's actually emotionally erratic. And so we'll dive more into that and really look at that with more detail in the session on emotional fortitude. In the last session, we talked a lot about how what we don't see becomes seen in the way our body functions or our behaviors. And you could even just use hate and love or bitterness and love as contradictory emotions and how it changes our body. When you're joyful or loving, your body is open. You're very responsive to people. When you're bitter or hateful, you're very closed and hard, and your body actually gets hard, especially if you remain in that state. And so emotional fortitude is the ability to express what's inside of you because it's not determined by the things you encounter, that the unseen things that reside in your heart are what gets displayed regardless of the situation you're found in, okay? Neurological clarity is the third pillar of health. In short, neurological clarity is having full communication between the brain and the body. Now, there's a lot of systems of your body, but the nervous system is really the master system of all of them. And the way that it actually executes anything in the body, any function in the body or any thought in the body is nerve signals. So nerve signals have to travel from one nerve to another, or along long nerves from one part of the body to another part of the body, like wires that run through the entire thing. And if there's any disruption in the wiring, then you're going to have a disruption in function. Okay. In short, and I'll return to this example, but Christopher Reeve he played Superman in the old Superman movies. He fell off a horse. He broke his neck. and he ended up losing all function in his body, he didn't break every bone or tear every organ. All he lost was the signal between his brain and his body just shut off. So signals between the brain and the body are so important, and we can't have any disruption in those signals if we want to have healthy function. Chemical purity is the next pillar of health. Now, we need to have a chemically pure body in order for our body to function right. And so there's a couple things that pertain to chemical purity. The first is we need to have a drug-free body. Now, this one is going to be a shocker. And so again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this in this particular session because I really want to explain this in context so that we can wisely approach chemical purity, because I am going to reveal some things about drugs and pharmaceuticals that we commonly take that's actually hurting you both in the short term and the long term, and actually doing the exact opposite of what you're hoping to get out of the drug. But at the same time, I would never advocate for someone who hasn't maintained any of the pillars of their health to suddenly stop taking their drugs, because if your body is that weak, that drug might be the only thing that's actually forcing your body to function enough to keep you alive. And so we want to strengthen the body to the point where it's ridiculous to even think about needing or wanting a drug in your body. But we'll talk about that later in the future sessions. But basically, chemical purity means having a drug-free body, a toxin-free body. That one's very difficult because, I mean, you go to like any bathroom and it's cleaned with toxic chemicals to like bleaches and things like that. So when we just go about our day, when we get in our car, when we breathe in fumes from anything, we are actually accumulating some toxins in our body. Thankfully, our body does have detox pathways. And so to have chemical purity as a pillar of health, we need to have all of our detox pathways open and function correctly so that if we get any toxins in our body, they can easily get expelled back out of our body, keeping our body healthy and clean. So the cool thing about the body's design is that it's designed to filter out this garbage, okay? And then we should also do the best we can and work towards no consumption of toxins. And toxins can be found in our air, our water, our food, our environments that we live and work in. And so we can start identifying those things. And so when we talk about chemical purity in depth, we're going to be talking about the harm of some of these drugs, the ways that we accumulate or experience toxins, but then also we're going to talk about the body's amazing design to get this stuff out of our system and keep it out with those detox pathways. And I'm going to give you some tools to actually open those detox pathways up. There's a bunch of them. And so we should have all of them running at all times in order to keep our body clean. And then we obviously want that clean environment, like I talked about, air, food, and water. The next pillar of health is nutritional saturation. Now, I don't ever talk about a good diet. In fact, I don't even advocate for diets. If anything, the only recommendation I ever make to patients is this, that you can use a diet temporarily to get closer to your body functioning the way it's supposed to with nutrition. Nutritional saturation, the reason I picked that word specifically is it's not just eating pretty well or eating at least better than the other person we're thinking about. It's making sure that we have all of the nutrients that we need in our body and that all of those nutrients that we consume are absorbed. Okay, and so we're going to be talking about the difference between consumption and absorption. Consumption is basically taking food and putting it in our mouth. And that just means we put it into our digestive tract. But if we don't finish the digestive process, then it won't get absorbed into our bloodstream and it actually leaves us malnourished. And so we need to ensure that the maximum amount of nutrients that are needed in our body are absorbed into our body. That provides saturation of all necessary nutrients. We also need to make sure that any unnecessary nutrients are expelled. So excessive nutritional absorption, so absorbing too many nutrients, is actually a form of toxicity, right? Absorbing too many calories creates a toxic body, an unhealthy body. Now, I'm not saying if you have any fat on your body, you're toxic. That's not what I'm saying, because healthy fat is a part of life. But you can actually get to toxic levels of things where it's detrimental to the health of your body. You're also going to learn the normal nutrition cycle, which is so important, because the normal nutrition cycle is really the pathway for the entire digestive process, and it starts with the brain and it ends with the brain. It does not start with the food that you select. And so when we go through the normal nutrition cycle, you're going to start to understand how this cycle really governs the way we get the right nutrients in at maximum levels. And I'm going to teach you how to repair the normal nutrition cycle. Now, I've given you access to the Eating Perfectly Masterclass as a part of Health by God's Design, because I want you to be able to really get this one down. I think that one of the easiest ways to start to feel better is to get your food right. You need to nourish your body in order to function right. So the Eating Perfectly Masterclass is really the foundation for understanding the complexities of this normal nutrition cycle. And little hint, it's not that complex, but I'm going to explain it fully, and it'll feel like a lot until you finally get it down. And basically what it comes down to is this: you should eat what you crave. That's the summary. So you'll enjoy that. You also need to remain fully hydrated to maximize cellular function. So hydration, or H2O, getting water in. Water is a nutrient to your body. And so being fully hydrated is part of nutritional saturation. You want to remain fully hydrated so that your body functions right. The last pillar of health is called physical discipline. Physical discipline, the reason why I put it last, basically working out, exercising, and using your body on a regular basis, the reason I put it last is because the use of your body physically is the blessing you get for maintaining your health and these other pillars over time. So if you keep your body chemically pure, if you have a good discipline and you have right perspective over your body's potential, you nourish your body well, your nervous system is working right, then your body will naturally feel like it wants to be used. And then you can actually train your body for greater and greater use, and it will respond and adapt to that training, increasing your capability over time. So when we talk about physical discipline as a pillar, it means we should be using your body functionally every day. And we're going to be talking about some of the ways that's broken down, but I'm also going to describe some of the potential, the amazing potential we have in the human body, so you can get that right perspective of your potential. You need to move your body according to its needed use, okay? What I mean by that is there's a lot of weird movements we do, or a lack of movement. So sitting in an ergonomic chair for 8 hours doesn't make you a physically disciplined person. Ergonomics don't make any sense if you're stagnant in an ergonomic position. Perfect ergonomics is movement itself. And so I never understood why we spend so much time trying to do nothing very well, instead of learning how to use our body much more effectively so that it doesn't hurt and it remains strong and resilient over time. In order to have physical discipline, you actually need to strain your body to grow in the right direction. And so when we talk about this in more detail, I'm going to be describing how you actually need to put your body under healthy stressors in order to grow it, and how your body responds to those things. Okay? One of the biggest things that I found is that there's this thing called a 1630 conundrum. And I just named it that, the 1630 conundrum. But basically, your body is physically capable of 16 hours of use a day. And it could be more, maybe a little less, but let's just say 16 waking hours you should be able to use your body physically, giving yourself 8 hours of rest at night to recover, okay? If in that 16 hours you just needed about 30 minutes to rest and recuperate, that's about really all you need. But unfortunately, we have flipped this thing on its head where we sit for like 16 hours a day. I mean, if you really think about it, you wake up and you sit down to drink coffee and eat breakfast, and then you get up, you get ready for a few minutes, and then you get in your car and you sit to transport yourself from point A to point B. Get out of your car, go into your office, and sit for 4 hours, and then you finally get a lunch break, and you're so tired from work that you finally sit at lunch to take a break from all the sitting you've been doing, only to go back to work and sit for maybe 4 more hours. And then when you're finally done with the day, you're so excited to go home, so you rush to your car to sit to transport yourself from point B to point A again, and to get home and plop yourself on that sofa and sit to relax. And if out of that entire day you do a 30-minute workout, people will applaud you and call you an athlete when you're capable of all-day function, all-day movement. And so we're going to explore this 1630 conundrum a little bit more and try to put this in right order so you can start to understand not only what your capabilities are, but then how to retrain towards that. And so I am going to be providing some resources for you to start physical training, but I'm not actually going to do it at first, which a lot of people would think, hey, just go ahead and start with the workout plans. The reason I'm not going to is because so many times it's done in that order. You're hurting within 3 weeks because you've been doing things wrong, not maintaining your body, depleting certain things. It's all jumbled up. But if we actually learn in this order by the time we get to physical discipline, and I provide those resources to you to do more than you're doing right now, you're actually going to succeed and succeed and succeed time after time and grow sustainably with very little injury, because you'll understand the principles that govern healthy growth and use of your body. One of the things that we're going to be talking about in the body is also that adaptive part of your body. We're going to start to identify when something is an actual problem versus when it's not. So sometimes we think of things like throwing up as a sickness or an illness. It's the problem that we need to get rid of, when really one of the things we can think of is, well, are we throwing up, and throwing up is the sickness? Or do we have something in us that our body is desperately trying to get out of us? And so when we have knowledge, we could say, okay, that's vomiting. Vomiting is a symptom of disease. Yes, that's knowledge. But if we apply wisdom to the thought of what's going on with vomiting, well, maybe we actually want to allow your body to vomit so it can expel whatever's inside of it that shouldn't be in there, because something's in there that needs to get out. And so a wise approach to having nausea is to allow vomiting so that you solve the problem, which is you have something inside that needs to get out. When we look at like something like a laceration, a cut, right? A cut's the problem. Yeah, we might put a Band-Aid on that, but a Band-Aid doesn't actually do the healing. The healing comes from within your body. A Band-Aid or a bandage or a suture or anything like that only creates a better environment for healing to happen, but the body only heals if it's healthy, and it heals from the inside out. And so, yes, I know that's a laceration. Maybe that's a deep enough one that needs sutures. That's knowledge. That's knowledge. It's not wrong application of knowledge, but to know that it's from a healing that happens from the inside out, that's the right perspective on something even like a laceration. Scoliosis is another one. We could look at scoliosis. I'm just giving you a few examples here, but you know, a lot of times we look at scoliosis when we say, well, where the curve in the spine is, that's the problem. And so one person might say, you know what you need to fix scoliosis? You need a brace. Another person might look at it, a surgeon might look at it and say, you know what you need is you need surgical rods placed in your spine to make it straight and keep it straight. I would look at it and I would say, you know, I wonder what is causing the imbalance of the spine, because the spine is designed to be straight. It's designed to function straight, and it's functioning so imbalanced, it's literally pulling the spine curved in a way it shouldn't. And those muscles of the back are controlled by nerves in the neck. So I would look at it and I would say, the first place I would look with a person with a spine curve that bad is in their upper neck. And the reason I would do that is because I want to go to the root of the problem. And so what we're going to be doing when we go through this course is taking a look at all problems with a root cause analysis, right? The problem with vomiting, the root is either bad food or a virus, something inside that needs to get out. The root cause of a laceration is whatever cut you. It doesn't go much deeper than that, so we need to apply some sort of amending principle to it, potentially, but know that the body is designed to heal from the inside out. The root cause of a scoliosis is usually not someone pushing on your spine, making it crooked. So something internally had to break down. So I would look at that and I would say, I think that's a breakdown of neurological clarity. I'm going to go to its root, okay? When it's vomiting, chemical purity is broken down, right? Something toxic is in the body with a laceration. It has nothing to do with the principles. A laceration is a trauma, okay? And so the reason why I'm showing you these three is when we can differentiate where the problem's coming from and what its root is, then we can start to say, hey, is the solution on me? Is the solution something I need help with? Is the solution trauma care, right? If I got a gunshot wound, I'm not going to wonder if I ate something bad. Like maybe I haven't been eating enough leafy greens, and that's why I got a gunshot wound. No, I got a gunshot wound. I'm going to the ER because the ER deals with trauma wounds very, very well. But they do not deal with malnutrition very well at all. And so if I am trying to steward my own health, then I should be able to say, hey, what I'm experiencing over here, this lethargy, and maybe I'm either losing or gaining weight, that's on me. That's a me problem, and I'm the one that's going to be able to fix it. If you're feeling like your body is not moving very effectively, you got to ask yourself, hey, am I actually engaging in physical discipline? You differentiate where the root of the problem is coming from so that you can start to get your bearings on where do I, like who needs to fix it, but then how do I fix it? And I'm telling you, every problem, every scenario I've gone through other than a direct trauma, which is a category of its own, all these other health issues really boil down to these 6 pillars of health. This is just a quick picture of the normal nutrition cycle, but you're going to see this over and over again, especially in the Eating Perfectly Masterclass. So again, the 6 pillars of health: chemical purity, mental acuity, neurological clarity, nutritional saturation, emotional fortitude, and physical discipline. These 6 pillars are the foundation for your health. And if you do not manage these 6 pillars well, your health will collapse and your foundations are in ruins. And so you're actually going to be able to need to go through the process of rebuilding each one of these pillars. Any that have failed or any that have gotten weak over time, start to rebuild them. And I guarantee if you rebuild these 6 pillars, you're going to be like a 6-legged table, a very strong structure, able to bear immense weight. And what I mean by immense weight when I talk about your health is you're going to be able to endure a lot of trials, challenges, and changes with ease, coming out healthy and better every time you encounter them. And it really isn't dependent on age. Things do slow down with age, but I'm telling you, like I've seen people defy the age standard because they were willing to get this stuff in order. And I've never seen it described anywhere else so comprehensively, talking about things like even our emotions and our perspectives, and then all these other physical disciplines that we need to engage in and how they tie together. And so I'm just really excited for you to understand how these pillars interact with one another, how to restore them, and how to maintain them over a lifetime. Look, I get to experience the benefit of this type of health every day, but I also have had times where my health gets shaky, and I'm telling you, I can nail it down why I'm in that state every time. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 of the pillars sometimes are all getting trashed at once, or I'm not maintaining them, where I get so busy I forget to do some things that I know are very critically important. But I also know that if there's a season where they're like I'm trapped in a place where I cannot steward one of them as well as I'd like to, but I am stewarding the others very well, that the strength of the others supports the one that I'm not able to engage in. For example, if I'm not able to work out as much as I'm capable of and I like to really maintain my physical discipline, if I'm eating well, making sure I'm staying chemically pure, I think right, I'm staying well disciplined in other areas, and I have like a right perspective, and I know my nervous system is working right, then I know that my body will still maintain health. And so I'm not saying this in any sort of arrogant way, but like even my wife will get comments and people like, does your husband work out all the time? And she's like, no, he hasn't worked out in like a month. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't make sense because a lot of people think the only way to stay physically fit is only through exercise, when physical fitness is the byproduct of a well-maintained life, okay? And so that's what I want to really drive home today, is these 6 pillars of health are the foundation of a healthy life, okay? These 6 pillars do rest on this one foundation that we're going to be talking about in the next session, which is your identity in Christ, and you're going to see how it changes your perspective. Man, is it powerful. When we have right perspective on who we are and whose we are, it changes our emotional fortitude so much. When we understand that the gift we're given to live this life, to engage in the work that the Lord's called us to, it makes sense why we need to keep our bodies pure, why we need to nourish them well, why we need to keep our structure intact and use our body usefully, so that we're useful both now and we maintain that usefulness later, so that through our entire life, we can continue to do what we're called to do and what He really created us to do. And so these 6 pillars, yeah, they're the physical side of it, but man, this foundation is everything. And so I'm very excited as we dive in next session to our identity in Christ. This course has the potential to change so much in your life. And it's because it's just simply how it works. You know, going all the way back to the Ralph Waldo Emerson's quote, he said, "As to the methods, there may be 1,000,000 and then some, but principles are few. The man who grasps principles, or these 6 pillars of health, can successfully select his own methods." In other words, if you understand these 6 pillars, you're going to be able to successfully choose daily your own activities, and they be the right activities for proper maintenance and even growth, without someone having to tell you what to do, okay? And then he said, but the man who tries methods while ignoring principles. So if you just decide to go do a very intense workout plan, but don't really understand how to move your body right, or what your capability is, if you just choose a random diet, say, my friend got benefits from this diet, so I'll try it too, but you don't really understand the principles of nutrition, you're bound to have trouble, right? He said, if the man who tries methods while ignoring principles is sure to have trouble. What's going to happen is you're going to try thing after thing after thing, drug after drug, treatment after treatment, therapy after therapy, diet after diet, always striving but never succeeding in actually getting and staying well. And so that's what I really want to hope to bring to you through this course, is a principled life, a principled, healthy life where you truly know how it works and how to maintain it. And then I want you to go share it with others, because then you can start to change other people's lives and change things down your generational line, or even your relatives, like change their inheritance of what they get, because they'll have true understanding of what it takes to make their body tick so they can do everything God called them to. So thanks so much for your time tonight. This is a real blessing. I look forward to seeing you in the next session where we talk about identity in Christ.